Alright, 1031 skill check. Please take out your paper, and I'm going to go through this relatively quick, so please use your rewind and stop functions as needed. So looking at problem number 1 right here. The secret to this problem, or I guess it's not a secret, but the difficult part to this is taking this negative 2 right here and distributing it, in which case it's going to be 5 minus 2x plus 6. And then on the right hand side, notice I have to distribute the 3, so that's going to be 3x minus 3 plus 4, and from here I can just simplify. So it looks like on the left hand side 5 plus 6 is 11, so we're going to have negative 2x plus 11. On the right hand side I have the negative 3 plus the 4, which is 1, so I have 3x plus 1. Add 2x to both sides. I'm going to come up with 11 equals 5x plus 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. 5x is going to equal 10. Divide each side by 5. X is equal to 2. Alright, question number 2. These are function problems. So the first one here, it's giving us the output, so we're going to plug in 14 for the m of x. So we're going to have 14 is equal to 4x squared minus 2. Notice I skipped ahead here. I add 2 to both sides, in which case we have 16 equals 4x squared. Divide each side by 4. We're going to have x squared is equal to 4. To get rid of the x squared, I got to take the square root. And remember, whenever you take the square root of both sides, you have the positive and the negative. So in which case, x is going to equal 2, and x is going to equal negative 2. Part B, they are giving us the input, so I just put that in for the x value. So plug in negative 5, I'm going to have negative 2 times negative 5. Well, negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. Question number 3. Domain and range. Just fill out the general format. Looking at the graph, it looks like the smallest number is negative 3. It is not equal to negative 3 because there's a filled in circle. And then on the largest side there is an arrow, so therefore it is going forever to infinity. Set up the range the same way. Looking at the graph, the smallest number on the range, there is an arrow going down forever, so that would be negative infinity. The largest number looks like it is 1, 2, 3, but it is not equal to that, so positive 3 looks like the value, positive 3. And again, it's an open circle, so it is not equal to. Question number 4, we're supposed to expand, so in this case we need a generic rectangle. So I have x minus 2, and I have x plus 10. X times x is equal to x squared. X times negative 2 is equal to negative 2x. X times 10 is equal to 10x. X times negative 2 is negative 20. If I combine my x's together, it looks like that would be 8x, so I'm left with x squared plus 8x minus 20. Alright, problem number 5. We're supposed to factor this. So diamond problem, generic rectangle. Certain items I can fill in already. I can fill in my 6x squared into one corner, my negative 2 in the other corner. And when I multiply those together, I come up with a negative 12x squared on the top of my diamond problem and a 1x on the bottom. So I believe that if I multiply 4x times a negative 3x, I'm going to come up with 1x when I add them and negative 12x when I multiply them. So I can throw those in the opposite corners here, so 4x, negative 3x. If I factor out, it looks like 3x and 6x squared both have a 3x in common. 3x times 2x is equal to 6x squared. 3x times, I believe, a negative 1 is equal to negative 3x. And 2x times 2 is going to be 4x. So my factored form then is 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 2. Moving right along, problem number 6. Bart has goldfish that started in 1987. Currently, he has 1,500 fish, and the population is growing at 8% a year. So it is 8%. This is going to be geometric. Y is equal to a times b to the x power. We know that the a value is equal to 1,500. That's how many he started with way back in 1987. And his multiplier, well, let's see, 8% It is going to make the fish grow, so I have to add on 100%. Divide that by 100. I believe my multiplier then is going to be 1.08 to the x power. Okay. If you wanted to use a different starting value, you could do that, but I think this was the easiest way, so I'm going to just stop right there with that one. Question B, it says Anna has a marble collection that currently has 550 marbles. She adds 5 marbles to the collection every month. Well, if she adds the same amount, remember that is arithmetic, mx plus b. Remember the m is how much it increases or decreases by each time. Well, it's just 5 in this case. It's increasing by 5 every month, and then what she starts with is your b value. She's starting with 550 marbles. So there are your two equations. Pretty easy question there. Hopefully if you did not get it right this time, you can get it right next time. Question number 7 is probably the most difficult question, and that has to deal with the simplifying again. So I'm going to write it all out. Those people that are able to do shortcuts, good for you. But I know a lot of people don't know shortcuts, so they have to write these out. So in this case, I have 4, I have an x, I have a y, and I have a y. But I have 3 sets of these, so I have to write it out again. 4x, y, y, 4x, y, y. On the bottom, I have 8, I have x, and I have 2 z's. Well, if I start canceling out, or dividing out, x divided by x is a 1. Looks like 4 goes into 4 one time, 4 goes into 8 2 times. I can do that again. Looks like 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 2 times. So what am I left with? Well, I have a 2 and I have a 4, so that's 8. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 y's, so y to the 6th power. Notice I left some spaces for my x. I have x to the 2nd power. That's all on top of the fraction. On the bottom of the fraction, it looks like I have z to the 2nd power. B, I'm going to do the same thing. I have a fraction bar that I need to use. So looks like the 4 stays on top. The a has a negative 3 exponent. Remember, negative exponent flips it to the other side, so I have a to the 3rd power. On the other one, I have a 2, which stays on top. I have a squared, which is a times a, but notice again I have 2 sets of those, so I have another 2a. Well, if I rewrite this a to the 3rd power, I'll erase what I have here. I'm going to write that as a times a times a, so then I can start simplifying again. So a divided by a is 1, a divided by a is 1, a divided by a is 1. So what am I left with? It looks like I have 4 times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16, and then times a. Problem number 8, we're supposed to solve this using any of the methods that we have. Well, we have the quadratic formula, we have factoring, and we have completing the square. This one here is not factorable, so I am going to, for this one, complete the square. So here's my x squared tile. I have to put 4 of them so that I have the same on each side. So I'm going to put 2 x's on this side. I'm going to put 2 x's on this side. In which case, if I look at the outside of the rectangle of x, I have x, I have a 2, I have a 2. When I complete my square, it looks like I have 2 times 2, so I have to add on 4 tiles. Take that 4, add it on to this side, so plus 4. I have to add it on to this side as well. And notice that I was going really fast and I forgot to do the first step, which is to add 9 to both sides. Alright, so now if I simplify, on the left hand side I have 4 plus 9, which is 13. On the right hand side I have the square. I have this thing over here. Well, I can write that square as x plus 2 squared. Take the square root of both sides, so x plus 2 is equal to the square root of 13. And remember, when we do take the square root of both sides, we need the plus or minus. I can subtract 2 from both sides, in which case I have x is equal to a negative 2 plus or minus square root of 13. And that is your best answer because you do not have to round anything. If you want to change the square root of 13 into a decimal and calculate, you may do that, but this is an acceptable, actually it's the best answer for this problem. If you do change it in a decimal, it does turn out to be a negative 5.6, and 1.6. Problem number 9A. It says invest $560 into an account that pays 8% annual interest compounded quarterly. So quarterly, remember we are... Alright, so remember this is geometric. Y equals A times B to the x power. For my multiplier, I have 8%, but it is compounded quarterly, so I got to divide that by 4. It's 2% per quarter. Change that into a multiplier, so I add on 100%. So 102%. Divide that by 100. So it's 1.02. So y is equal to the initial value, which is $560, times the multiplier 1.02 to the x power, but remember x equals the quarters. Alright, and then we're supposed to figure it out for 12 years. So in this case, y is equal to 560 times 1.02. Well, let's see, in 12 years, there's going to be how many quarters? Well, there's going to be 48 quarters, I believe. 4 each year for 12 years, 48. When I do that, it turns out to be $1,448.76. Part B, it says $560 into account paying 10% simple interest. Simple interest, remember, is y equals mx plus b. M is the complicated part. Remember, for m, you take your initial value, which is $560, and you multiply it by the interest rate, which is 10%. But I have to change that 10% into a decimal, so that's 0.10. That turns out to be 56. So y is equal to 56x plus b. Well, b is the initial value, $560. In this case, I just plug 12 in for x. So when I do that, it turns out to be $1,232. So that's 9A and 9B. Last but not least, we have the last problem. We're supposed to solve this system. Well, notice I put the higher x value on top. To solve, I just divide. In which case, I have a divided by a, which is 1. B to the 5th divided by b to the 3rd is b squared. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Take the square root of each side. Well, square root of 9 is 3 or negative 3, but remember multipliers can only be positive, so my b value is 3. Take that, plug it in, plug it in. So 4 is equal to a times 3 to the 3rd power, which happens to be 27. Divide each side by 27. Looks like our a value is going to turn out to be 4/27, or if you change that into a decimal, it's 0.148. So the equation, y is equal to, oh, we didn't even have to write an equation, I apologize. We just needed the a and the b value. And that is it for the skill check.